Hey guys, this is Mateus Quinteri. I'm a professional musician here in Nashville, Tennessee, where playing hot chicken picking licks is the only way to survive. And today, you're gonna learn the pentatonic scale once and for all. It doesn't matter what kind of music you play, metal, jazz, country, blues, fusion, the pentatonic scale is absolutely essential. It's important to understand that and study it very seriously without ever underestimating its 5-note simplicity. I'm gonna divide this musical journey in 5 steps, but make sure you guys watch until the end, because then I'm gonna be sharing some of my favorite pentatonic licks, okay? The first thing you need to do is memorize the 5 boxes of the pentatonic scale. These boxes allow you to play that same scale, the same 5 notes all over the fretboard, so you have a lot of freedom to play solos all over the fretboard. We're gonna do this in the key of C major or A minor. Let's get to it. Here's box number 1. Box number 2. Box number 3. Box number 4. Box number 5. Some of these boxes can look kind of similar at first, but that's no excuse for you to be mixing them up and making mistakes, okay? You need to memorize this to the point where you always nail it 100% of the time. To help you memorize these boxes, I'm gonna give you 2 very simple exercises. The first one is very simple. You're just gonna go down on one box and up on the next one. It helps you to notice how the boxes connect. Pay attention to these connections I'm talking about. Like, for example, the first box you play 5, 8 on the first string, and then the second box starts on that 8th note. So every time you play a box, you're already playing one note from the next box. The next exercise is a pattern that I really like, and it's very simple also. You're gonna play 3 strings, and then go back 1 and play 3 more. And then you can go back doing the opposite. So once you're comfortable doing that, you can skip that little pause that I did just now, and it will sound like this. And then you're gonna do that same pattern over all the 5 boxes. Now that you have those boxes memorized in a sequence, the next thing you need to be able to do is to visually relate each one of those boxes to a chord shape. So I'm going to show you 5 ways to play a C major chord and what pentatonic box to use over each of those chord shapes, and the same for A minor. And what that allows you to do is whenever you're playing a song, there's a certain chord you need to solo over, you're going to know exactly what pentatonic box goes over that chord shape. And then once you do that, your knowledge of the sequence of the boxes kicks in, and then you can move freely all over the fretboard. So let's get to it. Here's C shape number 1 and the pentatonic box around it. Pay attention to how that pentatonic box touches all the notes of that chord. it's important to be able to do that in a very visual way. You know, you look at the chord shape and you know exactly what pentatonic box goes over that. Next, C shape. Next, C shape. Trying to emphasize the notes of the chord there when I'm playing the pentatonic box. The next, C shape. The next, C shape, the last one. That way, you know, whenever you see one of these shapes and you're playing a song, you know exactly what pentatonic box to play over that chord shape, okay? Now, let's do the same for A minor. And the pentatonic box over it. The next, A minor shape. Next, A minor shape. Next, A minor shape. And the last A minor shape. Once you get familiar with that, you know, if you're playing a song, say in the key of G, you know, and then you have the G chord shape here, you know that the pentatonic box over that chord shape is this one. Once you discover that, then you're like, okay, this is box number 2. So if I want to go to box number 3, it's right here, number 4. And so forth, you know, that way you can phrase all over the fretboard. And maybe you want to start higher, so you find another way of playing that G major chord. That's why it's helpful to know several ways to play the same chord. So I can choose to play this G chord instead, and I know exactly what pentatonic box goes over that chord. It's this one. Knowing the chord shapes also gives you better knowledge of the chord tones, which are the notes of the chord. And those notes, when you're playing the scale, are usually the best ones for you to emphasize and rest when you're writing a solo or when you're improvising. The next thing I want to talk about is the use of different techniques over the pentatonic scale. So I'm going to give you one exercise over 4 different techniques using the pentatonic scale. Alternate picking. Here's a really cool pattern. And then what you're going to do is you're going to start on the 2nd string now and do the same thing. And so forth. Let's go to the 3rd string. And then, of course, I want you to practice these patterns over all the 5 boxes. So if I do on the 2nd one, for example. And you can also do it diagonally, for example. And then move to the 2nd string and the 2nd box. And you create something different. Next, let's do some legato. Do that over all 5 boxes. Here's a hybrid picking pattern. Playing a hammer-on with a pick, and then I'm skipping to the D string with my middle finger to grab this note here, and then pull off on the E string and another note on the D string with my middle finger. So then you move to the next string, do the same thing. The whole thing. Now let's do some tapping. For this one in particular, we're going to use two boxes at once. So I'm going to be playing one box with my left hand, and then the other box is going to be with the tapping hand. So I'm going to start here on the 10th fret of the E string. So I'm going to play 10th fret, pull off to the 8th fret, pull off to the 5th fret. So 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to tap the note that I just pulled off here with my pinky. And then 5th fret, and then I'm gonna hammer on to the 8th fret of the next string. And that's the whole pattern basically. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And now I'm gonna start the same thing again on the B string. So it's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So one more time. And so forth. Now let's talk about passing tones. Passing tones are notes that are not in the pentatonic scale, but they add color to your phrasing. And you can find them in many different ways. There are not like really any rules when it comes to passing tones. But I want to share a few ideas with you. One of the first things that I started doing when I was learning the pentatonic scale was everywhere there was a whole step interval in a pentatonic box, I would just put a note right in the middle. So the first box, for example, I would do this note to this note is also a whole step, so you could. There are many different ways. You can even like do some enclosures that sound a little more jazzy. So for example, you have these two notes here on the B string. I can do. So I'm making my way from this note to this note. And when I'm almost there, I skip it to this one and approach it from behind. Sometimes you're playing like, for example, you're in the second box. I can grab these two notes and start moving them chromatically back until I get to another note from the other box, and then I go from there, you know. So just be creative with it, and you're gonna find this in several different solos from great players. Let's take just a second here to talk about the blue note. Even though when you're adding a lot of chromatic passing tones, the blue note is kind of already there, I think it's special because different than other passing tones, the blue note, you can actually stop on it sometimes to add some tension to your phrasing. And the blue note is the sharp fourth on the minor pentatonic scale. So in this case, A minor. It's right here, you know, between the D and the E. And this is what is known as the blues scale. And you can find that blue note, of course, on any of the 5 pentatonic boxes, and I encourage you to do so. And like I said, you can kind of rest on it and it still sounds good. You know, some of the other passing tones, there are just notes on the way to something else, and if you actually rest on them, it doesn't always sound that great, you know, but the blue note kind of does. Now let's go over some of the most useful applications of the pentatonic scale. The first one is to play the pentatonic scale over the general key of a song or of a chord progression. That's when you have a bunch of chords that are all within the same key. In that case, the chords will be changing, but you will be playing the same scale. For example, if we have a progression that has A minor, F, C, and G, all those chords are in the key of C or A minor. So in that case, you can use any of those 5 boxes of the A minor C pentatonic scale, and it's gonna sound good. Some songs though have chords that don't belong to the same key. And in that case, you gotta change scales along with the chords. And even if they do belong to the same key, but you want your phrasing to sound a little more sophisticated, you can change scales every time the chords change, in the backing track or the band or whatever. So in that case, it's essential that you know exactly what pentatonic box goes over each chord shape, because that will make your life a lot easier. Let's talk about the blues application of the pentatonic scale, and that consists of playing the minor pentatonic over a major chord. So for example, you have a C major chord, but you play C minor pentatonic. That's what gives that bluesy, flavor to your phrasing. And it also works sometimes over a whole key. If you have a progression that's kind of like a 1-4-5, in the key of C major and you want to play C minor pentatonic, sometimes it works over the whole progression as well. Something else you can do when playing over a major chord is mix both the pentatonics, the major with the minor. And there are many ways you can do this. There's not really a formula. My only advice is just listen to how each of those scales sound over that chord and then make your decision based on what sound you want to get. So you might play a little something major and then respond to that with something else that's minor, creating that contrast. You can also just throw all those notes from both scales in a blender and see what comes out. You can come up with some pretty cool lines. It becomes its own scale almost, If you guys are looking for some in-ear monitors, check out the T9 by X-Vive. I was using them just now for this jam part of the lesson. They sound great. They have plenty of low end. They're very comfortable, fair price, and they don't pop out. I love them. I've been using them live for several months now, and they're really good. I'll leave a link for you in the description. Check it out. Let's just take a second and talk about the difference between the minor pentatonic scale and the major pentatonic scale. The boxes are the same. The same 5 boxes can be minor or major. It's not because you're playing this particular box that you're actually playing minor. That depends on the context. And what I mean by that is the relation between the scale you're playing, the notes you're playing, with the chords that are being played by the band or the backing track. So for example, if the band is playing a C chord, then these notes, my ears will perceive those notes in relation to that C chord. In that case, the C becomes the root, and all the other notes are intervals related to that root. and that gives me a sound of the C major pentatonic scale. It doesn't matter which box I play, they're all going to be C major pentatonic scale. And if I play those same notes, but the band is playing something that's more like A minor, even if there are more chords, but the A minor is the dominant, sound of that progression, then in that case, those notes become the A minor pentatonic. So it totally depends on the context. And how you play things will change according to the chord that's being playing as well. You're going to want to rest on different notes. So if you're playing over A minor, you might play something like, and that sounds great, but that might not work over C. If I'm playing over C, I'll probably play something more like, that sounds more like C major. So the notes are the same, but how you play them and what you emphasize is different. So now here are some of my favorite pentatonic licks. Key of A minor C, we're going to play the 7th fret of the G string, 5th fret of the B string, and then a pull off on the B string from the 8th fret to the 5th fret, and that's the whole thing. So few different ways when it comes to the technique to play this lick. Some people like to do sweep picking on the first two notes, so, and then an upstroke on the pull off. So down, down, up. You can also do alternate picking, so down, up, down, down, up, down. Or you can do hybrid picking, so downstroke with a pick, middle finger on the second note, and then another downstroke on the pull off. So you can also make it a little more interesting by grabbing a note from the next pentatonic box every other time, for example. So the first time I'll do a pull off from the 8th fret, but the second time I'll do a pull off from the 10th fret, grabbing a note from the second pentatonic box. So, and of course you can move that pattern to the other boxes as well. So the other lick, we're gonna combine two pentatonic boxes, alternate picking. We're gonna start here on the 7th fret of the G string, to the 9th fret, back to the 7th fret, to the 5th fret. So, and then on the D string, 7, 5, and that's the whole thing. And then you can move that to the next pentatonic box. And so forth, so it's pretty cool alternate picking lick. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you click like, subscribe, share it with your friends. Buy a t-shirt. If you want to learn more, I got some links for you in the description. Instructional videos for sale. I got a Patreon full of country guitar solos transcribed with backing tracks. You can also book an online lesson with me through my website. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.